Hello and welcome to the Graduate Writing Workshop, Writing a Literature Review, Preparation and Research, Part 1, brought to you by University College at Arizona State University. In this workshop, we will define what exactly is a literature review and then go over locating and evaluating sources. To wrap up the workshop, we will end on organizing a literature review. So let's get into it. What is a literature review? A literature review is a survey and critical discussion of previous scholarship on a particular research subject. Literature reviews include both summary and synthesis, and they can be on a narrow topic. For example, a literature review can answer the question, does physician empathy affect patient outcomes? Or a literature review can be on a broader topic. Another example, what makes a good physician? Both of these two questions deal with sciences and physicians, but they are talking about different things. One is on specific empathy and affecting outcomes, while the other is more on a general effect on what makes a good physician. So literature reviews can have narrow or broader lenses. Literature review's main purpose is to provide the context of your research to explain why your research is needed. To help explain this, we have the Burkean parlor, or the philosophy of literary form, and I will read it out loud to you now. Imagine that you enter a parlor. You come late. When you arrive, others have long preceded you, and they are engaged in a heated discussion, a discussion too heated for them to pause and tell you exactly what it is about. In fact, the discussion had already begun long before any of them got there, so that no one present is qualified to retrace for you all the steps that had gone before. You listen for a while until you decide that you have caught the tenor of the argument. Then you put in your oar. Someone answers, you answer him. Another comes to your defense. Another aligns himself against you, to either the embarrassment or gratification of your opponent, depending on the quality of your ally's assistance. However, the discussion is interminable. The hour grows late, and you must depart. And you do depart, with the discussion still vigorously in progress. We share the Burkean parlor with you all because it is a great example of how your literature reviews are you putting in your oar in your research field, because research has been conducted before you have entered your field. Research is happening alongside you, and research will continue to happen after you publish and work on your own research. And so by reviewing everything that's been said, what has been said, you can then put in your oar to add what can be said and what will continue to be said in your specific discipline. So again, that's why we share this, to help you see where you are fitting into the story and how your literature reviews can help you contribute to this story. So we wanted to go a bit more into the purpose of literature reviews. They do provide readers with a background or context to understand the research topic, but they also compare studies, theories, and ideas that are happening within your discipline. Literature reviews highlight current debates, developments in the field, and gaps in research, and they also limit the problem and set up your contribution and research. Literature reviews examine opposing viewpoints or other counterarguments and provide justification for selection of theories and methodology. Lastly, literature reviews establish authors' credibility as a writer and researcher in the field. Again, going back to the Burkean parlor, your literature reviews are a chance for you to highlight everything that you have researched while you're contributing research to your discipline, and it really can ensure your credibility because you are showing everything that you need to show to your audience. All right. When exactly do we use literature reviews? So you might need to write a literature review for a course assignment, and this might include a research paper or a paper proposal, or you need to include a literature review. The literature reviews are also popular in a thesis or dissertation. So they are included with chapters of your culminating project or in a prospectus. Articles for publication also include literature reviews because they may be within a research article or they're as part of a review article with the purpose of conveying the state of your discipline or field. And then lastly, literature reviews are also included in funding proposals. This includes explanations of issues or problems and how it will be addressed with particular resources and or solutions. So with those 4 places where we see literature reviews in mind, we have a few things that are good to consider when you are working on a literature review. You want to include peer-reviewed and scholarly articles, because again, you're discussing what has been said about your topic and what is being said now. And that also shows your credibility as an author because you've researched what your fellow colleagues have all been saying about this topic. With that in mind, you want to balance paraphrasing and directly quoting because by paraphrasing, you are still sharing all the information in your own words, and by directly quoting, you are highlighting specific wording or phrases that need to be quoted because that is how it needs to be said. And you want to find that balance with these things so that you are again showing your readers that you are digesting the information and integrating it into your own research. It's good to consider what counts as a foundational or landmark source when you're looking over a variety of sources in a literature review, because some fields have one of those foundational or landmark sources that established a theory that now everyone likes to use, or established results of an experiment that, again, everyone now currently refers to. Because if you know that that kind of information is respected and often used in your discipline, you'll have to consider if you need to include that information in your literature review to help outline your research as well. You want to be specific with the criteria used to select sources, because again, you want to be balancing, paraphrasing, and directly quoting, looking over those foundational sources and any other sources that support your argument and your research, or provide any other context that will help your readers understand your research. So being specific with that criteria can help you narrow down what you need to review for your literature review. You want to do your best to avoid bias because while you are arguing a specific point, in literature reviews, you're supposed to offer all of the information that is available on the conversation. So thus you want to include resources that agree with you, resources that maybe don't agree with you, so that you can give your audience the full picture. You want to be intentional with your literature review, and you want to decide on the story. Because again, your literature review is a way that you are adding to the conversation of your research topic. And so you want to make sure your audience, again, is understanding everything that you have to say and that you're making your mark on your field. All right, so here's a visualization that we wanted to share to kind of outline this process and all these considerations for your literature review. In the broader sense, you want to look at all of the context that's derived from previous studies and look over those foundational texts and theories, or maybe you want to expose any gaps in the current research. That is one tenor of your literature review that you want to accomplish. You also want to include the discussion of trends and methodology, research, theories, so that you can situate your study. You have the broader context information, and now you're focusing in on what exactly you want to contribute. And then right there at the end of the triangle, then you want to focus on your contribution in your work and what your research is trying to accomplish. All right, so we wanted to outline some steps to help you get started with writing your literature review. These 6 steps are not the end all be all, but these are steps that can help you get started. So the first one here is you want to determine your research topic and your scope. You may already have this if you're working on a culminating project or a dissertation, but let's say you're working on a class assignment. You want to determine your topic and your scope first so that you can know exactly what you're addressing. Once you have that research topic, you can start to gather current scholarship. And again, think about that specific criteria of what sources you want to review so that you can gather the scholarship that will best support and provide context for your story. You'll want to critically read and assess the literature and then understand where your research fits into the conversation. Because again, you're seeing what's been said and what you can now say with your literature review. You'll then want to organize the literature in a meaningful way. And this means you want to identify key themes, trends, debates, methods, and more, because then that can help you see how the story has been outlined in the past and how you can put it together for your own audience. And once you have all that information, you can start drafting your literature review and revising your literature review as you continue to work. Please note that these steps can be retraced. They're not exactly linear. You can add another source at any time because your literature review is a living document. Back to the Brookerian Parlor, it's a conversation and a discussion that you're having with yourself, your professors, your peers, and everyone else in your discipline. So don't feel bad if you ever have to go back to gathering current scholarship or understanding where your research fits, because you are, again, working in this living document. All right. Now that we've talked a little bit more about the definition and the purpose of literature reviews, we'll now move on to locating and evaluating sources for your literature review. So here are some strategies to help you get started with locating sources. It's really great to start with mentor texts or exemplar papers, because these are examples of scholarly writing that can act as a guide when writing in new or different ways. Different fields have different priorities for what they want literature reviews to focus on. And so by finding these examples in mentor texts, again, you can see how other people have structured their literature reviews in the past and how you can maybe mirror that structure to help you get started. These mentor texts won't necessarily provide you with content information, but they will provide you with writing strategies. Is there a certain way that other authors and researchers in your field integrate their evidence, balancing paraphrasing and direct quotes? Is there a specific way they like to structure the literature review that, again, you can mirror that? And so they won't have your research specifically, but they will have all of those structure and other writing strategies that you can reference. You can locate examples of other literature reviews in journal articles, books, student dissertations, or theses. And if you want to look at ASU-specific dissertations or theses, the ASU library does have a global database on this. So for global is when they include a variety of theses and dissertations from universities across the globe, but then they also have ASU-only dissertations and theses. If you want to look up maybe literature reviews that have been written by past students in your exact program, the ASU library database may have that available. But there's also general and specialized databases that you can reference when looking for mentor texts. On the ASU library, there is the Library One search that you can also use, but then there's also Google Scholar and other general search engines that have mentor texts available. You can also use other specialized databases such as PsycInfo, PubMed, ERIC, and more. And with your ASU library credentials, sometimes you are able to access these databases. And if you're curious about accessing those, we have a recording of our literature review workshop from the fall semester that is posted on our website, where a librarian goes over that process. So if you are interested, you can review that recording again on our website. While you are going through these databases, we wanted to provide a few search strategies to help you be as specific or as broad as you need to be. So you want to watch and record how your terms return results, because sometimes some words that or keywords that you use can provide 17,000 results. And other times, if you get too specific with your wording while you're searching certain things, you don't get a lot of results. You'll get like 1 or 2 articles that pop up. And so explore with a thesaurus, a other author keywords from research you've read in the past, or subject terms so that you can fit a specialized pool of resources in your searches. It's also good to look over different references of past articles you've read, because whatever they are citing may lead you to the context and story that you are looking for. You can look at other author searches, citations, or institutional searches so that you are again referencing the information that has been referenced by other researchers in your field. And again, while you're looking over and researching different resources, you want to think about your criteria once more. So you want to determine what you consider within the scope that you're working in, and you want to develop reasoning for inclusion and exclusion of sources. Because while you are reviewing literature for your literature review, it can be a bit overwhelming, seeing everything all at once. And so by developing that reasoning for these are the sources I will include, these are the sources I'll look at later, that can help you navigate everything that you're looking over and keep it focused to what you're addressing in your literature review. All right, so a few notes on how to discover landmark research while you're reviewing for a literature review. There's a few questions you can ask yourself and see if you are on the right path to discovering this landmark research. So, have you included an academic-focused research database in your search so far? Have you noticed trends in the papers you're reading? Does a particular institution or researcher come up frequently in your reading? Have you checked the citation count of papers in your field? Have you discovered the top journals in your field? Have you noticed a particular paper referenced in other research papers? You should find the original paper and read it to familiarize yourself with the original research, because maybe it will answer all of the above questions we've asked so far. Lastly, have you consulted your advisor about the major sources for your research topic? Advisors, professors, or other peers in your support network may be able to answer this question and guide you in the right direction to find more landmark research within your research topic so that you can start to review all of those sources as well. So again, asking yourself these questions can help you to continue to develop your criteria for what you need to review so that you can find the research that you need to address everything in your literature review. Right. Once you have all of your different sources with your literature review, the next step is organizing it so that you can begin to draft your literature review. So while you're critically reading, it's important to know that it is like a cycle. You'll read that first source, you'll process the information, see where it fits into your research, into your story with your literature review. You'll begin to integrate it into your notes, into some draft paragraphs. And then once you've felt like you've looked over everything that needs to be looked over, you'll start to read that second source and find more information. This is when the cycle starts to change, because then maybe you'll rethink the integration of your first source with this extra information from the second source, and then you'll need to decide on how those sources work together. And now you can articulate all of that for your audience. And then this is where we get to summarizing and synthesizing your sources. Once you go through this process, you'll have to find more sources to continue the conversation. And then this is where the cycle sort of continues. You then read another source, process that information, and go all the way back through the cycle. And so, like we said before, it's okay that if you start at one part of the cycle and then you need to go backwards, that's all right, because you're working through the information, you're processing everything, and you're organizing your literature in a way so that you can integrate it in the way you want to, and you're presenting the story to your audience. So we have some strategies on critical reading to help you with this cycle. You want to start with determining your goal. Before reading, ask yourself what you are hoping to learn or gain from the text. Once you have the answer to that question, you consider the ways you might need this text to inform your research topic or paper. So while you are reading over it, you can highlight everything that answers that question. Again, when we're reviewing resources for our literature review, sometimes there's a lot of resources to look over, and it seems a little intimidating. And so one strategy for critical reading is just to preview the text. Briefly skim the text to identify any headings, section breaks, any figures or tables, and sources in the bibliography or reference list at the end. Because with that skim, you can determine whether this source is meeting your criteria, or maybe it's a source that you can read later and you can move on to the next one. Another strategy for critical reading is to take notes while you're reading, because you want to dialogue with the text as you read. If there's any impressions you have, questions you want to ask, or opinions that immediately pop up, you'll want to record that and write it down so that you can reference that later and see if that at any point can be integrated into your literature review. So decide where you want to record your notes. Do you want to print out the article and write in the margins on the article itself? Do you want to have a Word document or an Excel document where you track everything? Do you want to write everything down in a notebook? Whatever note-taking entity works for you best, use it while you're critically reading so that you can keep track of everything. And lastly, another strategy for critical reading is to review all of the notes that you take while you are reading, because you can use your notes to identify answers to your questions, as well as any themes in the readings that you've completed. You can also decide your next steps. For example, are there additional sources you might need to find because in your notes you realize you're missing any information? Or maybe is there more information that you want to use in your paper, and so you need to go back and find another source? So we wanted to provide a bit more strategies on tracking your research because everyone does this in a different way. And so we want you to think about what's the best way that you can organize your research or your sources that you find. Again, is a spreadsheet how you like to organize everything? Do you want to use a citation management software like Zotero that's available through the ASU library? Is there a filing system, a visual mind map system, or a sticky note system that you want to use? Whatever it is, use what works best for you and start to track everything that you're reading over while you're working on a literature review or while you're critically reading any other research for your other assignments or culminating projects. You will apply your refined criteria in this process while you are tracking everything. And so keep that in mind while you're creating your process. So on the online study hub, we have a few resources that can help you track your research as well if you would like to see what a potential option can look like. We have the reading and synthesis log available on the study hub, and on this log, you can provide the citation at the top of the paper in whatever writing style you're writing in, and then you can answer these questions on this graph here while you are critically reading your resource. The first one here is, on what theories does the author base ideas? You can list all of those theories while you're reading, and then you can move on to the next question. As a result of the ideas explored in the source, what conclusions do the authors offer to readers? Do you agree or disagree? Why? This question here is to help you with your impressions with the text. How do you feel about it? Do you agree? Why or why not? You can track all of that here in this log. So again, this is one example of a resource that's available through the study hub where you can review everything. So again, you put your source at the top, you look at the guiding questions and track your notes, and then you can print most of these out or type on these in the online study hub and collect your research that way. If you prefer to use a spreadsheet, we do have a few tips on how you can track your research with a spreadsheet. You do want to log every piece of reading when you read it and keep it up to date. And you want to capture key information in a spreadsheet. So the author, the year, the title, categories, document type, key arguments and themes, things like that. So that, again, you're tracking everything that you need to track in the spreadsheet. You can use the power of your spreadsheet to sort, filter, and search your literature and discover relationships. And if you like looking at things like that, a spreadsheet might be a great organization strategy for you because, again, using those filters or search functions can just help you see all of your research at a glance. With these different organization strategies, you do want to answer the question, what do you look for when you are reading? And so again, we have another visualization to help explain this because you're looking at the claims, conclusions, and findings about what you are investigating in your different resources. You're seeing all the different definitions of terms or theories and methodologies that you'll need to explain to your readers and also apply to your work. You'll need calls for follow-up studies or that are relevant to your project. So again, looking at the gaps in the literature and where your research fits in to all of the different studies that you're looking at. And then again, where do you just fit in the overall research story? Does your work confirm or contradict what others have found so far? Are you expanding upon previous research? Are you challenging an established approach? Tracking your research in this way helps you answer all of these questions because you can organize it by looking at the claims and terms, call outs and gaps, and again, finishing on where do you fit in. And then once you have that information, you can then determine your organizational approach for the literature review, not just your research. Because now that your literature sources are all organized in a way, you can then think, do you want to structure your literature review by a central critical debate concerning your research topic? Do you want to organize it by a foundational study or scholar that significantly impacts your research topic? Do you want to start chronologically and focus on the development and or a significant shift in the field that you're researching? Or do you want to organize it by topic? So is there an approach or a methodology that you want to start with first? Is there a theory that you are addressing and researching? Or do you want to organize your literature review by a theme? Because different themes occurred in your research and you are outlining to your readers how these themes have developed and how your theme is now developing in your own research. So you want to think about these different kinds of ways you can structure your literature review because it does help you look at your organization of just your resources, and then you can start to picture how your literature review can start to build its own structure. So again, another note on finding themes in your literature for your literature review. You want to note any recurring phrases or labels you used in your reading annotations. So if there's a lot of educational policies you highlighted or social implications that you've noticed, or if there's community and government relationships that are often talked about in your research, these are just examples of things that you can look out for those recurring phrases or labels. You want to take those recurring phrases in the research you've conducted so far, and you want to create headings for your literature review draft, because maybe that can help you start to organize your literature structure. You want to start writing about sources according to their relationships to these headings, and then you want to stay open to rearranging your sources under the different headings and to revising your headings, because this again helps you start to picture everything and how it can all work together so that you can tell your story. So here's an example of how that can come to be. On the left here, we have an outline of a first draft. And so we have the introduction, the article, the first article, the second article, the first book, proceedings, article 3, article 4, summary, and conclusions. So this is a list of maybe how you read all of the information. And so that's how you decide to structure your literature review draft, because this is how you made your way through the research. But maybe after organizing your literature and seeing and identifying any different key themes, you can start to revise your structure. So your literature review can start with its introduction, and then you move into your first common theme. And it looks like articles 1, 2, and 3 compare and contrast with this theme. So that's what you want to discuss first. Now, there's a second common theme that you've discovered in all of the research. And so these proceedings, article 2 and then article 4, are addressing this theme by calling out gaps in the research, new directions the research can take, and article 4 here is synthesizing everything that's been talked about so far. So now you are in turn synthesizing all this information to then get into your summary and your conclusion. So again, this is another example of how your literature review is a living document. You're critically reading and assessing all of this information in your literature review, and then you're determining an approach for how you can present the information and seeing where it can all come together. So we have some helpful resources that we wanted to share with you all to help with this process. At the ASU Graduate Writing Centers, you can come and meet with the tutor to discuss literature reviews, but you can also go to the ASU library and look over their LibGuides, where they can help you with literature reviews, looking over research, or answering any questions you have on locating a resource. Purdue OWL and OWL Excelsior are also online resources that are very helpful in writing strategies, and they have some information on writing a literature review, getting started with structure, or where you can possibly look for other resources. So those websites are also available to you to help you with this process. All right, if you're interested about any of the other information we talked about today, we have listed our references here so that you can review that information if you are curious. And with that, we'll close on what is available to you in the graduate writing centers. So in graduate writing tutoring, all appointments are one-on-one, and we can help at any stage of the writing process. So let's say you have an outline of a literature review and you want to discuss your ideas before you begin to draft your literature review. You can bring that to a writing tutor and see what possible directions you can take with that outline. Maybe you have drafted your literature review and you want to review grammar, sentence style options, if you've used citations right, etc. You can bring that to the center as well, and a tutor will happily look that over for you. We do recommend that students schedule appointments at least 1 to 2 weeks in advance, because sometimes our schedule can tend to fill up. So if you know that you're writing a literature review for a class assignment and that it's due in April, you can look ahead in the schedule and see if there's any appointments available in March or April and schedule that appointment now. A few more logistics on graduate writing tutoring. We do offer tutoring online through Zoom and in person at the Tempe Writing Center. And all appointments are one-on-one with a peer tutor. Appointments are 50 minutes long and our hours are listed below. Online, we are available Monday through Thursday, 11 to 9 p.m. And in person in the Noble Library, we are available 11 to 7 p.m. On Fridays, across online center and in-person locations, we are open 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then on Sunday, we are open only online 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. All hours here are listed in Arizona time. We also have additional graduate support through the Graduate Writing Center. You can continue to attend these graduate writing workshops that go over a variety of writing topics, and these are presented live through Zoom. The graduate writing summer camps are also available to graduate and doctoral students. The Success in Graduate Writing Camp is open to master's students who are looking for support in writing strategies, research strategies, and other ASU resources. And the dissertation writing camp is open to doctoral students who are writing their dissertation project or prospectus. So for more information on these camps, and if you're interested in registering, you can visit the link on the slide here. We also offer writing group support at the Graduate Writing Center. And so if you're interested in any of these things, again, you can visit our website. All right, lastly, here is how you can contact us. Our website, tutoring.asu.edu, has all of the information I've just discussed, but you can also call us at our main phone number listed on the slide, or send us a Slack in our public Slack channel if you prefer. With that, thank you all so much. I will end the recording.